12 jurors are needed for an upcoming trial. The diagram below illustrates the process. The 12 jurors selected will be selected from a jury pool of 60 people. So there's 60 people total. That's a key number here. The court records show that a trend that only 40% of the people who are summoned actually appear. So 40% actually appear, and that of the people who appear, 1/3 are excused. If the same trend continues, how many people should be summoned to have as close to 60 people in the jury pool? So we ultimately want 60 people to be in the jury pool. So summoned, we are starting with 60 people. Let's put that in green. We'll break it down as we go. So we're starting with 60 people summoned. And of those summoned, 40% actually appear. So 60 times 40, or 40% of 60, so 40 over 100, or 60 times 0.4 equals 24. So 24 actually appear. So now we're here. And of those, 1/3 are excused. So 1/3 of 24, or 24 times, let's put it in orange, 1/3 of 24 equals 8. So 8 are excused, and that means we want a jury pool of 60. Okay, so when we summon originally 60 people, we get into a proportion now. When we summon 60 people originally, we end up getting a jury pool of 16, right? So 24 minus 8 is 16, right? So 16 is how many we have in the jury pool. Summon 60, we get 16. And we want to know how many people we need to summon, X, how many people we need to summon to have a jury pool of 60. There we go. So summoned on the top, appear on the bottom. We summoned 16, we have 16 appear. How many do we need to summon to have 60 appear? Cross multiply, 16x equals 3,600. Divide both sides by 16. You get x equals 225. So you need to summon 225 people in order to get 60 in the jury pool. D. What is the 275th digit after the decimal point and the repeating decimal 6295? So it's going to be 6295, and the next one's will be 6295. Then it'll be 6295 again. ACT likes this type of question. So we have 4 digits. 1, 2, 3, 4 digits. We want to know what the 275th digit is. If I asked you what's going to be the 6th digit, you could say that, all right? The 6th digit is going to be 2. And what if I said, well, what's the 8th digit going to be? Well, that would be 5. You can see that. So we want a 275th digit, and we're going to divide that by 4, a little old school division. Think about if I said, what's the 8th digit? Okay, what is the 8th digit? And I said, all right, I want you to divide that by 4 again, because that's the number of digits we have in the repeating decimal, and you get 2, a whole number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go, let's count it twice. And so on this one, we're going to divide by 4. What if I said, let's change it again, let's make it a little different. What if I said, well, what is the 7th digit? Okay, well, 4 goes into it one time, 4, with a remainder of 3. Remainder of 3. 1, 2, 3. The 7th digit would be 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would be 9. So that's how this one works. So 4 times 6 is 24. You get 35. 4 times 8, 32. Now we have a remainder of 3. So the digit is going to be 1, 2, 3. It's going to be the 9. So your answer is K. ACT really likes this style of thinking question where the math isn't hard, but the thinking is tricky. Given that f of x equals x squared minus 4 and g of x equals x plus 3, what is f of x of g of x? F of g of x equals 0. So we're going to plug x plus 3 in for x. So we're going to have x plus 3 squared minus 4 equals 0. Let me show you a quick way to do this one. Because what you could do, well, right, to solve this, you're really going to go x plus 3 times x plus 3 minus 4 equals 0. And you're going to work it out, which I'll do in just a minute. Let's go a different way. What if we just take the answers and plug in the answers? Well, let's try negative 5. Let's have negative 5 plus 3. Right? Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Right? And then negative 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 4 equals 0. So, yay, negative 5 works. There's not a negative 5 anywhere else. Your answer has to be A. If negative 5 didn't work, you know A is wrong. So that's a quick way to do this one. Now, if you're working it out, you're going to continue to work it out this way. We're gonna FOIL it out. X squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9 minus 4 equals 0. Combine our like terms. X squared plus 6x plus 5 equals 0. And now we're going to have to factor it. It looks like probably 1 and 5. We'll get a 6. We're going to say x plus 5, x plus 1 equals 0. We can double check. FOIL x squared. Outer 1x, inner 5x, 1 plus 5 is 6, yep, and last is 5. That works. So we have x plus 5 equals 0, so x equals negative 5. There we go, and then x plus 1 equals 0, x equals negative 1, and so there's your answer again. Which way is faster? To me, the quickly plugging in the answer was the fastest way to get the correct answer. So A. Given that P is a positive number and N is a negative number and the absolute value of P is greater than N, which has the greatest value? Okay, so we're going to make P, I'm going to make P equals 3. I'm going to plug in a number to see this work. I don't see it without plugging in numbers. And N we're going to make has to be a negative number. We're going to make it negative 2. So the absolute value of P is greater than the absolute value of 2. So 3 is greater than 2. Now I'm going to plug them all in to the answer expressions to see which one gives me the greatest value. Okay, so I wrote each of these in. So 3 minus negative 2 is 3 plus 2 over 3. So that's going to equal 5/3. And 3 minus negative 2 is 5. Negative 2, 5. Negative 5 halves was absolute value, so it becomes 5 halves. And 3 plus negative 2, that becomes a 1 over 3 plus 2, 1 over 1/5. Right? Yep. And then 3 plus negative 2, that's going to be 1/3. And 3 plus negative 2, 1 over 2, 1/2. So we know that these are all not the greatest. So 5 over 3 or 5 over 2. So 2 1/2 or 1 2/3. Which one's bigger? Choice G. There's just a lot of areas, a lot of ways to make mistakes on this one with your positives and negatives. But G has to be the correct answer as long as you take your time. Okay, you could just put this straight into your calculator using your imaginary number key if you have a TI-84, TI-84 Plus, TI Inspire. Just put it in there and you should get the answer equals -1. Now let's say you don't have your calculator, you don't know how to put that into your calculator. If you do have a TI-84, you hit the second key, and then it's above the decimal, right? That's where you'll find the I key. So if not, you need to know your I chart. I squared equals -1, I to the third equals -I to the fourth equals 1, I to the fifth equals I. And now we can just plug these into the equation because we have I plus I squared, which is -1 plus -1, plus I cubed, which is -I, over I cubed, which is -I to the fourth plus 1, and then I to the fifth is plus I. So now our I and our -I cancel. We're left on top with -1 over our I and our I and -I cancel. We're left on the bottom with 1. So -1 divided by 1 equals -1. So is it faster to put it in your calculator or know your I chart? If you know your I chart, it can be quick, but you probably won't make any mistakes if you put it in your calculator. So your answer is B. In one of the following graphs, the solution set is below is shaded. Which one? So this top equation is y equals mx plus b. So x plus 2y is less than or equal to 6. So subtract x from both sides. You get 2y is less than or equal to -x plus 6. Divide both sides by 2. The whole thing by 2, and you get y is less than or equal to -x plus -1/2 x plus 3. And it's a plus. Let's make that a little bit better. Oops. There we go. Okay, so this is our slope, and so our slope is going to be a negative slope, so we know it has to be either choice. F can't be J, it could be K. It's less than this, so it can't be H. It's a negative slope, but the shaded area is above it, so that one's out. This is a negative slope, but nothing's shaded below it except for the little circle. Actually, it still could be that. We've got to look at this one. So, okay, so we've narrowed it down to F, possibly G, and K. Now let's look at the equation of the circle. So 3x squared, let's get the x and y together. 3x squared plus 3y squared is greater than 12. Let's get rid of our 3. Let's divide everything by 3. Now we have x squared. Try that again. X squared plus y squared is greater than 4. Okay, so x squared plus y squared is greater than 4. It's going to be greater than the radius, so it's going to be bigger. So it's going to be outside the circle. And if this is the radius, that means this is 2. Radius is 2. And so that means that it's not going to go out. It's not going to go above the 3, right? So we know that the y-intercept is 3, and 2 is below that, so it can't be choice F, and it's outside the circle, so it has to be choice K. Hope I did a good enough job explaining that one. That one's tricky. You got to know the equation of the slope-intercept form of the line and the equation of the circle, and kind of know what each one stands for. Let A, B, C, and D be real numbers, given that A times C equals 1. So that means A could be 1 and C could be 1, because 1 times 1 equals 1. B plus C divided by D is undefined. That means D has to equal 0. So over here, D also equals 0. And then we have A times B times C equals D. So A times B times C equals D, which is 0. And we already know A times B could be 1 times 1. So 1 times 1 times something has to equal 0. So that means that B has to equal 0 in order for the whole thing to equal 0 because D is 0. So B is 0. Choice D. Which of the following equations represents this function? So, we're just looking at cosine. So we're not having to choose between sine and cosine. That would have actually made it easier because cosine goes through the origin. So let's start with the range. So the range is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's not 2. So we can eliminate F and G. And that probably would have been easy. Even if you don't really know what you're doing, you could probably say, well, it's probably 3 because there's 3 units here, so it's not going to be 2. And then the period, right, distance from one peak to the next, if this is half pi, this is pi, right? So it's the distance is pi. And the period formula is, let's see, 2 pi over absolute value of b, and in the formula b is represented by the coefficient that's here, or the number that's here. So this would be 1/3, 1/2, and 2. And so we want this to be pi, so it'll be 2 pi divided by 2 equals pi. So it has to be k. That's a tough question. There's a lot of pieces of knowledge you have to know in order to get this one right. Here's the beautiful thing though. If you know it, you probably know it, right? The students who are scoring pretty well on it are probably gonna get this one right. Yay, pre-cal question, easy question, done. If you don't know it, you might can narrow it down and get a 1 out of 3 chance. Take your best guess and move on. Okay, there's 2 ways to approach this problem. I'm going to show you the math way, at least one of the math ways, and a kind of a technique you can use. So the figure below, the kite forms an angle of elevation of 75 degrees. It's 240 degrees from this point. That's 45 degrees. So we know 2 angles in one side. So everything there just tells you that. And we want to know what is the length of the string, right, here to here. So we could do the math way, which is going to be the law of sines. Side A over sine of side A equals side B over the sine of B equals C over the sine of C. So the angles are opposite sides. So we know this angle. We want to know this side. We also actually know this angle right here because we know 180 minus 75 minus 45 equals 60. So that's 60. So this one becomes, now we can know 60 over, or actually that's wrong. I did that backwards. 240 over sine of 60 equals x string over sine of 45. And just put this in your calculator. Make sure it's the right mode. And cross multiply, and you get x equals about 195, which one equals about 195, 80 root 6, which you can also put in your calculator, or you could say 80 times a little bigger than 2, a little bigger than, a little less than 3, right? Because root 4 would be 2, root 9 would be 3, so it's like 2.4. 80 times 2.4 is about almost 200. Now, there's another way to do this. Another way to do this is to use your answer document as a form of a ruler. And if you put this down and count the edges, so just using these as a ruler, anything really, you could use notches on your pencil if you wanted to, or you could put notches on a piece of paper and use it. And I'm counting 12 of these little spots, right? From here to here is 12. And I know that's over 240. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this other side and lay those down, and I count 10. This isn't exactly precise, right? It's not the math way to get it. Equals 10 over x. So you're setting up a proportion, and you're going to cross multiply. 12x equals 2,400. And so then I'm going to, on my calculator, 2,400 divided by 12, right, divide both sides by 12. X equals about 200. Well, which one's closest to 200? Choice B. So it's a math way of knowing how to set up a proportion. Are you guaranteed to get the right answer that way? No. Can you get close? Yeah. And the more precise measurement tool you have, the more precise answer you're going to get. So that's just a way to kind of figure it out. ACT was actually kind of nice here, and they gave you this little dotted line. You could just copy that dotted line onto a sheet of paper, right? Just kind of mimic that line on your answer key or an area in your answer booklet and lay that down there and count as well. So there's always techniques of how to solve there's many techniques to solve many questions, not always techniques. A publisher charges $15 for the first book and $12 for each additional copy, which the following expressions represents the cost of Y books. Okay, so books and then cost. It's going to set up a table to make sure I see it. So if I purchase one book, it's $15. If I purchase two books, it's going to cost me $15 plus $12. Right, because it's one additional book, or 12 times 1. If I purchase 3 books, it's going to be $15 plus 12 times 2 books, right? So if I look at it that way, I can see that each book is going to be $12. But then I have to add $3, right? So if I had 3 books, let's say 3 books, 3 times 12, 12 times 3 equals 36, but it doesn't actually cost me 36 because I have an additional $3, so plus 3. So my answer is F. Writing them out helps me to see it sometimes. Some of you might see it, some of you might be able to graph it. To me, it helps just to see it in a table.